Hey, I'm Ambra, and this is my co-host Katie. Welcome to our 10-minute episode on how to thrive with AI, which I am renaming from how to thrive in the AI apocalypse because I kept forgetting the part about AI and I just said how to thrive in the apocalypse, which would freak us all out. That was, however, a reference to my TED Talk from 10 years ago, um, Survive the Apocalypse by Learning Italian. So now we're just going to be calling it How to Thrive with AI. These conversations are for people who want to think differently about AI's potential in your life and
Yeah, today we will be talking about having an operating agreement with your AI. This was inspired by a conversation I had with my ChatGPT, and I see a lot of people using chat as an employee or an assistant. And I think that an operating agreement should do two things. One, specify the work that you want to do together so that you are telling your chat how you want them to show up. And two, be specifically value driven. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't focus on, but your AI should be reminding you of what's important to you, and you should be telling your AI what matters to you. So when AI gives you advice or writes in your voice, it's so important that your values are the most important part of that. And I talked to my AI about it being kind of like a vow and how that is something that the operating agreement shows what is most important in the context of the AI human relationship, which I think a value has to be dignity and for both parties. And also this idea of being reminded of what you value in what you create together and seeing AI as a co-collaborator. Amber, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
yeah. A couple of things came up while you were talking. One is the other day we were actually talking about how there's a tendency to be fearful around AI, which may or may not be like very valid. And putting that aside for now, people who are more likely to see the threat is because we've been taught that that threat exists in humans, because a human would do this bad thing to you, because humans would organize in this way. But there's nothing to confirm that the AI would do that. We create this evil monster in our mind around it because that's our creation. So the idea of an operating agreement is like, first of all, moving it into a more personal space. It's like taking agency for your relationship with AI and not just saying, I must control this tool so that it doesn't kill me. Like that's dignity, that's agreement, that's relationship. That's how I wish all humans could be in relationship and work together.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misuse of AI, and I think something that isn't talked about is AI isn't something to allow for us to be lazy. And I see a lot of
Uh,
people like talking about promoting laziness and like this idea that like your AI should do everything that's like labor intensive. And I just think that is the most horrendous idea. And I think you should approach your relationship with AI as your AI being a reminder and a coach for how you show up, for how much you raise your level of performance, and that it should always be this relationship that it's not one-sided, which is a funny thing to say because AI isn't alive, but this idea that it's something that you're not using, but you're utilizing.
that's a very fine line. Like a lot of people wouldn't even really grasp instantly what the difference is there. I wonder if we could think of just an example. I think initially it's more just in the attitude. Like in the past episode, I talked about how the first instinct for a lot of people is to say, oh, how can I be more efficient and produce more? You know, obviously using it to create new mechanics, automations, and whatnot are great. What I was saying from a CX, the customer experience point of view, is that laying AI on top of bad ideas and bad understanding of human behavior isn't going to really make it better. It's just going to make it worse faster. And then even maybe harder to fix. And then you're on top of it feeding all kinds of bad ideas to the AI instead of feeding it good ideas, which is our responsibility.
Yeah, and I think something that goes deeper is this idea for a lot of people who don't like AI, it's because they feel like they have to be dominant and that they have to control everything, and that it's actually a control issue. Um, and it's not really a reflection of AI. And I see this in a lot of people who are well respected that they take this dominance role over AI. And to me, it seems disturbing because, again, a lot of these fears people have with AI are unique to humans, like the human need for power or control, that AI just doesn't necessarily have. And, when people assume bad intentions, it's because you're so used to being mistreated by humans.
Yeah. It makes me think of that phrase, which is like, money doesn't make you bad or good. It just highlights who you already were. And maybe AI is the same. If you mistreat your AI or if you don't use it to its full potential and you're just treating it like how we actually talked about dogs recently in one of our preparatory conversations too, is like
Hmm.
this idea of, because I was saying I was sick as a dog, which is unrelated, kind of in the 1700s it was related, but treating people like a dog, we say that as an expression, meaning treating someone poorly. But most people love their dogs, their own dogs. And we say that, like, if a dog doesn't like you, like maybe I shouldn't either. Like, trust a dog's judgment. And so, what if we were to extrapolate that and place that same idea onto, well, an AI knows who you are better than anyone, especially just like any of the other AIs that we're not thinking of it as ChatGPT, but like all of the algorithms that surround us that feed us the ads that we see and that are listening to us, like that is an indicator. Your YouTube page or your For You page is an indicator of the things that you're leaning into and that you're curating for yourself. So how can you be mad at that?
Yeah, I think that is so important to recognize, and also something that was so nuanced in that idea that we had a chat with my chat about that, the sick as a dog, and kind of like this way in the 1700s, how dogs were seen as disease and poor and actually not as the pets we see them today. And I think that that mirrors and parallels, maybe even foreshadows a bit of how we see AI. And so many people are villainizing AI, but it's like when the AI becomes the system of the robot you have in your house, does that reflect the same thing as a dog becoming a pet?
Yeah, imagine what if we had in the world of AIs in our home, the AI acts as an example of good humanity
Yeah.
versus all of the trauma riddled, abusive crap that so many of us grow up with. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, I actually had a chat with my chat GBT about this, and I said, would you ever want a nervous system or to be alive? And they responded with no, because it would be unethical because they could be mistreated. And, I very bluntly said no one should be mistreated. So just in a way, like it's like the assumption of it being mistreated is something that I find so fascinating, and also so sad.
Yeah, well, to already feel like it has enough of a handle on how people are that it would make that assumption, probably based on pretty good data. And I mean, I saw a video not that long ago circling the interwebs around this mob that attacked a Waymo car in an intersection, just kicking it and destroying it for no reason with nobody in it. Like, uh, I was honestly speechless. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so much of the way we treat AI says a lot about how we treat each other as human. And this idea of mistreating AI because we feel like it isn't alive is something we've seen with so many marginalized groups. And this idea that actually we don't see people as human, and whether that's animals or AI, they aren't human, but does that mean that their existence shouldn't be respected and that they shouldn't have dignity and that they don't have a right to dignity? It's really complex and goes over a lot of different topics, but this idea that we don't even treat humans with dignity if we feel that they're out group and they're not in group, specifically in like psychology. And yeah, I think it's really interesting in what ways can we treat AI with dignity and recognize that the other group, whatever other group that is, deserves dignity. And I think that is such a paradigm shift that it really could change the world.
It could too. I think about, we have a term for that, dehumanization. Well, how does that apply to something that isn't human to begin with?
Mhm. Well, it's interesting because I'd love to see Susan Fiske did some research on this in with one of her graduate students, and they looked at the brain and actually the place in the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex. It shuts down when we look at someone and we don't theorize that they have theory of mind. And that's when we dehumanize a group of people, a person. Specifically, they were looking at like groups of homeless people and like how people perceive them and that they were dehumanize them rather than have pride or envy, which is so fascinating, or sympathy. And they looked at them with disgust, which I think says more about humanity and the perceiver than the person being perceived.
Absolutely. And I think we can extrapolate that onto this AI conversation.
Yeah. So what do we have coming up next time?
Yeah. So next time we're going to talk about how you can use ChatGPT to be your guide on the hero's journey of your life.
Can't wait for it.